In the quaint, unnamed town nestled amidst rolling hills and dense woods, the Anderson family found their new beginning. They moved into an old two-story house, which, despite its age, had an undeniable charm. At the heart of their new backyard stood a large ancient tree, its branches sprawling like gnarled fingers against the sky. The town was small, the kind where everyone knew everyone, and the Andersons were welcomed warmly. Yet, no one spoke of the tree. Alex, the youngest of the Andersons at 17, was immediately drawn to it. There was something about the way the shadows played around its trunk, or how the wind seemed to carry whispers when it rustled through the leaves. The tree was more than a mere plant, it felt like a silent, watchful guardian of their home. In the following days, as the family settled in, Alex's fascination with the tree grew. He would often find himself gazing out the window at it, feeling an inexplicable connection. His older sister, Emma, joked about it being his new best friend, but Alex sensed something deeper, something almost spiritual about the tree. One weekend, his father decided it was time to tidy up the yard. The tree's lower branches hung low, creating a gloomy canopy. As his father sawed off a particularly thick limb, Alex watched in horror as a thick red sap oozed from the cut. It dripped down the bark like blood from a wound. "What the?" his father muttered, stepping back. The sap was unnaturally red, stark against the dark bark. It was eerie, unsettling. "It's just some tree sap," his father finally said, though his voice lacked conviction. He wiped his saw on the grass and decided that was enough gardening for one day. That night, as Alex lay in bed, the house settled into a deep, uneasy silence. Then, faintly, he heard it, a whisper. No, not just one whisper, but many, overlapping, coming from the direction of the tree. He sat up, straining to listen, but the sound faded as quickly as it had appeared. Unease coiled in his stomach. The tree was more than it seemed. The next morning, Alex decided he needed to know more about the tree. The town's local library was small, but it had a section on local history. He spent hours poring over old newspapers and books, searching for any mention of the tree. He found old tales and legends, stories of strange occurrences, and accounts of people who had vanished without a trace near that very tree. One particularly chilling account was from an old diary found in the attic of his house, dating back over 100 years. It spoke of a ritual, of shadows and spirits, and of a guardian that stood watch. The diary belonged to a young woman who had lived in the house, and her descriptions of the tree matched exactly the one in Alex's yard. As the days passed, things around the house began to change. Doors would open and close on their own. Objects would move, seemingly of their own volition. Shadows seemed to linger longer, clinging to the corners of rooms. And always, the feeling of being watched, especially near the tree. Alex's family noticed the changes too. His mother found her garden decorations rearranged every morning. Emma complained of nightmares, of ghostly figures that stood at the foot of her bed. Their dog, Max, would growl at empty spaces, his hackles raised. Then came the morning they found the dead animals. Small ones at first, a bird or a squirrel, lying at the base of the tree. But then, a deer, its body twisted unnaturally, its eyes wide open in what looked like terror. That night, Alex unearthed the old diary again. He read of the ritual, a way to commune with the spirits bound to the tree. The diary warned of dangers, of the need for a strong will, but Alex felt compelled. He needed answers. He needed to understand the connection he felt with the tree, and to uncover the secrets it held. Under the cover of darkness, with the diary in hand, Alex stepped into the backyard. The air was charged, electric. The tree loomed before him, its presence more commanding than ever. Tonight, he would perform the ritual. Tonight, he would unveil the truth about the bleeding tree. The night was unnaturally still as Alex stood before the ancient tree, the pages of the old diary fluttering in his trembling hands. He had gathered everything the ritual required. Candles, a piece of the tree's bark, and an iron nail. The whispers seemed to grow louder, urging him on, as he arranged the items in a circle around him. The ritual was simple yet unnerving. He was to light the candles, place the bark in the center, and drive the nail through it into the ground, all the while reciting words from the diary. Words that felt ancient and powerful, echoing through the night air. As he spoke the final phrase, a gust of wind extinguished the candles, plunging him into darkness. The air grew colder, and the whispers turned into discernible voices, crying out in pain and anger. Alex's heart raced, he could feel eyes upon him, watching from the shadows. Then, the tree itself seemed to come alive. The branches swayed without any breeze, and the red sap began to seep from its bark, pulling on the ground. Ghostly figures emerged from the tree, their forms flickering like flames. They were trapped souls, bound to the tree, and Alex had just freed them. The spirits whirled around him, their faces twisted in anguish. One by one, they darted towards the house, slipping through the walls. Alex felt a sense of dread wash over him. He had unleashed something terrible. Rushing back into the house, he was met with chaos. His family was awake, terror etched on their faces as the spirits tormented them. His father was trying to fend off an invisible force, while his mother screamed, cornered by a shadowy figure. Emma was crying, clutching at her hair, as if trying to block out whispers only she could hear. Alex remembered the diary's words about the spirits. They were malevolent, feeding off fear and misery. He had to rebind them to the tree, but he didn't know how. Desperation fueling his actions, he grabbed the diary and began to search for a solution. The house shook with the force of the spirit's anger, windows cracking, and objects flying. Max barked furiously, trying to protect his family from the unseen assailants. Amidst the turmoil, Alex found a passage describing a sealing ritual. It required a sacrifice, a part of oneself willingly given. Without hesitation, Alex took the iron nail and drove it into his palm, the pain sharp and immediate. His blood dripped onto the diary's pages, and he began to recite the sealing words. The spirits reacted violently, their wails piercing the night. Outside, the tree responded. The branches reached towards the house, the red sap glowing ominously. The spirits were drawn back, their forms twisting and writhing as they were pulled into the tree. One by one, they disappeared into the bark, their cries fading into silence. The house calmed, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. Alex's family huddled together, shaken and pale. They looked at Alex, his hand bleeding, his eyes filled with a mix of relief and horror. They knew then that they couldn't stay in the house. The tree, with its bound spirits, was a constant reminder of the nightmare they had endured. In the morning, they packed their belongings, ready to leave the horrors behind. As they drove away, Alex glanced back at the tree. It stood there, silent and imposing, its secrets resealed within its bark. But he could still hear it whispering, a faint call that sent shivers down his spine. The tree remained, the guardian of the dead, the keeper of tormented souls. And for those who listened closely, it still whispered its dark tales, waiting for the next curious soul to unveil its mysteries. The morning sun cast a deceptive calm over the Andersons' home as they left. The horrors of the previous night hung heavy in the air, a stark contrast to the serene light of dawn. Alex sat in the back seat of the car, his wounded hand bandaged, but the real pain was in his heart. He had unleashed and then resealed a nightmare, and the weight of his actions bore down on him. The drive away from the house was silent, each family member lost in their own thoughts. Emma stared blankly out the window, her usual vibrant spirit dimmed by fear. Their mother held Max close, stroking his fur in a vain attempt to find comfort. Their father drove mechanically, his eyes fixed on the road ahead, but Alex knew his mind was still in the house with the ghosts. They stopped at a motel a few towns over, a nondescript place that offered a temporary refuge. That night, no one spoke much at dinner. The TV played in the background, a mundane chatter that none of them really heard. When they went to bed, sleep was elusive, chased away by memories and shadows that seemed to linger just out of sight. Alex lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The image of the tree, its branches reaching out as if to grab him, was burned into his mind. He could still hear the whispers, faint but persistent. It was as if the tree had left a mark on him, a connection that he couldn't sever. In the days that followed, the family tried to regain some sense of normalcy. They spoke little of what had happened, as if by mutual, unspoken agreement. But the incident was like a dark cloud over them, a shared trauma that they couldn't escape. Alex found himself drawn to the paranormal, seeking answers in books and online forums. He learned about other haunted places, other spirits bound to objects or locations. But nothing he read could explain why the tree had chosen to communicate with him, why he had felt such a strong connection to it. The family eventually settled in a new town, far away from the old house and its bleeding tree. They moved into a modern house in a quiet suburb, a stark contrast to the old character-filled home they had left behind. Life slowly returned to a semblance of normality. Emma went back to school, making new friends and trying to forget the nightmares. Their parents threw themselves into work, perhaps hoping to drown out the memories. But Alex couldn't move on. Night after night, he dreamt of the tree. In his dreams, it called to him, its whispers turning into pleas. He saw the faces of the trapped spirits, heard their cries for release. He woke up each morning feeling exhausted, as if he had been fighting battles in his sleep. Months passed, and the family never spoke of the tree again. But it lived on in Alex's mind, a constant haunting presence. He wondered if he would ever find peace, if the whispers would ever stop. One day, as he walked home from the local library, a gust of wind brought a familiar scent to him. It was the smell of the tree, earthy and metallic, like blood and old leaves. He stopped in his tracks, looking around, half expecting to see the tree looming over him. But there was nothing, just a quiet street and the normalcy of suburban life. Yet, in that moment, Alex knew that the tree was still with him, a part of him now. It was a reminder of the unknown, of the mysteries that lay just beyond the veil of the everyday world. The whispers might never leave him, but perhaps, in time, he would come to understand them. For now, they were a haunting melody, a call to explore the darkness, to seek out the secrets that lay hidden in the shadows of the world. As weeks turned into months, Alex's life in the new town was a pale shadow of normalcy. The whispers from the tree, though unheard by others, were a constant undercurrent in his daily life. His family, still reeling from their own experiences, seldom discussed the past, but the unspoken memories lingered like a fog. Alex's school life was uneventful, but he felt attached, as if part of him was still entangled with the tree's spectral roots. He made a few friends, but there was always a distance, an unbridgeable gap forged by his secret knowledge of the supernatural. His nights were restless. The dreams of the tree and its trapped spirits became more vivid. In these dreams, he wandered through dark, twisted forests, always following the beckoning branches of the tree, trying to understand its enigmatic whispers. He would wake up feeling drained, as if he had been walking for miles. One evening, as autumn painted the leaves in fiery hues, Alex stumbled upon an online community of paranormal enthusiasts. Here, people shared stories and theories about unexplained phenomena, much like what he had experienced. He started participating, sharing veiled details of his encounter with the tree. To his surprise, he received a message from a user who claimed to have experienced something similar. They spoke of a tree in their own town that bled and whispered, a tree that held spirits within its bark. The user, who went by the name Ravenwatcher, suggested that such trees could be ancient guardians, a bridge between the living and the spectral realms. Their conversations grew more frequent, and Alex felt a sense of camaraderie with Ravenwatcher. He was someone who understood, who believed in the eerie whispers of the night. Meanwhile, Alex's family observed his growing obsession with the paranormal with concern. Emma tried to engage him in other activities, but his mind seemed anchored to another world. His parents, worried about his well-being, suggested therapy, but Alex knew no therapist could help with what he had experienced. On the eve of the first anniversary of their encounter with the tree, a sense of unease settled over Alex. That night, his dreams were more intense. The tree appeared more menacing, its whispers more urgent. It seemed to be calling him back, beckoning him to return. He woke up with a start, his heart pounding. The room was dark, but for a moment, he thought he saw a shadow flicker across the wall. A chill ran down his spine as he remembered the spirits that had haunted their old home. The next day, Alex decided he needed to return to the tree. He felt a responsibility, a need to confront the past and perhaps find closure. He packed a small bag with essentials and left a note for his family, telling them not to worry. The journey back to the old house was a blur. Alex's mind was filled with a mix of dread and determination. As he neared the town, memories flooded back, each corner and landmark, a reminder of a life forever altered. When he finally stood before the old house, now looking more forlorn and abandoned, the tree was there, as imposing as ever. Its branches swayed slightly, though there was no wind. The red sap oozed slowly from its bark, glistening in the moonlight. Alex approached the tree, his heart in his throat. The whispers were louder now, a cacophony of voices that filled his mind. He reached out, his hand trembling, and touched the bark. In that moment, the world shifted. The whispers coalesced into a single, clear voice, and a vision filled Alex's mind. He saw the tree in ancient times, a gathering place for spirits, a beacon in the darkness. He understood then that the tree was not just a prison for malevolent spirits, but a sanctuary for all souls seeking solace. The vision faded, and Alex found himself back under the moonlit sky, his hands still on the tree. He felt a sense of peace, a connection to something ancient and eternal. He knew then that his journey with the supernatural was just beginning. The tree had opened a path for him, a path shrouded in shadow, but illuminated by the faint light of understanding. As he walked away from the tree, Alex felt a sense of purpose. The whispers were still there, but they were no longer menacing. They were a reminder of the mysteries that lay waiting to be uncovered, of the thin veil between the living and the dead. The tree remained in the yard, its secrets now part of Alex. And somewhere, in the vast tapestry of the unknown, other stories waited to be told, other whispers waited to be heard. In the days following his return from the old house, Alex felt a profound change within himself. The experience of the tree had not only deepened his understanding of the supernatural, but it also altered his perception of the world. He no longer felt haunted by the tree. Instead, he felt as though he had become a part of its legacy, a guardian of ancient secrets. Back in his new life, Alex found it challenging to reconcile his extraordinary experiences with the mundanity of everyday existence. School, once a place of simple routines, now felt constrictive, a world too narrow for his expanded consciousness. His interactions with friends and family were strained. He felt like an outsider, a wanderer between worlds. Despite this, Alex was determined to use his newfound understanding for a purpose. He continued to communicate with Ravenwatcher and others in the paranormal community, sharing insights and theories. He began to document his experiences, writing in a journal with the same fervor as the young woman who had written about the tree in her diary a century before. One evening, as autumn gave way to the cold embrace of winter, Alex received a message from Ravenwatcher that piqued his interest. A small town a few hours away was experiencing unexplained phenomena, shadows moving of their own accord, objects disappearing, and an overall sense of unease among the residents. It reminded Alex of the events leading up to the night of the ritual at the tree. Driven by a mixture of curiosity and a sense of duty, Alex decided to visit the town. He informed his family, who were understandably concerned, but also recognized the importance of this journey to him. With their hesitant blessing, he set off. Arriving in the town, Alex felt an immediate sense of familiarity. The air was thick with an unspoken tension, a town on the edge of understanding something beyond its grasp. He began his investigation, speaking to locals and observing the surroundings. The stories he heard were eerily similar to his own experiences. It was as if a shadow had descended upon the town, a whispering darkness. As he delved deeper, Alex discovered the epicenter of the disturbances, an old, abandoned church at the edge of town. Standing before it, he felt a chill run down his spine. The church, with its broken windows and weathered doors, exuded a sense of sorrow and longing. That night, under the cover of darkness, Alex entered the church. Inside, he felt the weight of many eyes upon him, as if unseen spirits were watching. He explored the decrepit aisles, the faded pews, and finally, the altar. There, he found symbols etched into the wood, symbols that resonated with an energy similar to that of the tree. Alex realized that, like the tree, the church was a nexus of spiritual energy, a focal point for the restless dead. He felt a surge of empathy for these trapped spirits, understanding their desire for release, for peace. Guided by instinct and the knowledge gained from his experience with the tree, Alex began a ritual of his own devising. He spoke words of comfort and release, offering the spirits a path to the beyond. The air around him shimmered, and he felt the presence of the spirits as they gathered around him. The ritual lasted until dawn, and as the first light of morning filtered through the broken windows, the church felt different, lighter. The oppressive atmosphere had lifted, and in its place was a sense of calm, of release. Alex left the church as the town awoke, feeling a sense of accomplishment. He had helped in his own way, had made a difference in the unseen world. The journey back home was a reflective one. Alex knew that his life would never be ordinary again. He had walked in the shadows, had spoken to the spirits, and had emerged with a deeper understanding of the world. As he walked through the door of his home, he was greeted by the relieved smiles of his family. They saw the change in him, a maturity and a sense of purpose that had not been there before. Alex's journey with the supernatural was far from over. The tree had opened a door to a world filled with mystery and wonder, a world that he was now a part of. And though the path ahead was shadowed and uncertain, he knew he would walk it with the confidence of one who had faced the unknown and emerged stronger. The whispers of the tree were now echoes in his mind, a reminder of the endless mysteries waiting to be discovered, of the thin veil that separates our world from the unseen. And as he lay in bed that night, listening to the quiet of the house, he smiled, for he knew that he was no longer alone in his journey. The echoes of the unseen were with him, guiding him on his path. In the weeks that followed his return from the haunted church, Alex's life took on a new rhythm, one that oscillated between his everyday responsibilities and his deepening exploration into the supernatural. His family, though initially apprehensive, began to accept this new aspect of his life. They saw in him a maturity and a sense of purpose that was both unsettling and reassuring. Alex continued his correspondence with Ravenwatcher and others in the paranormal community, his reputation growing as someone with a unique insight into the supernatural. His experiences with the tree and the church had given him a perspective that few others had, a bridge between the seen and the unseen. One day, while researching at the local library, Alex stumbled upon an old legend about a guardian of the veil, a figure said to walk between worlds, protecting the balance between the living and the dead. The legend resonated with him, and he couldn't help but feel that his experiences were leading him towards such a destiny. As autumn returned, bringing with it the anniversary of his first encounter with the bleeding tree, Alex felt a compelling urge to visit the old house once more. He informed his family, who understood his need to face the past. With their support, he embarked on the journey back to the house, a pilgrimage to the place where his path had irrevocably changed. Arriving at the old house, Alex found it unchanged, the tree still standing sentinel in the backyard. As he approached it, he felt a sense of coming home, a feeling of being welcomed by an old friend. The tree, with its dark bark and deep roots, seemed to acknowledge him, the whispers in the wind now like a chorus of ancient voices. Alex spent the day there, sitting under the tree, reflecting on his journey. He realized that he had become a guardian of sorts, a mediator between the realms of the living and the dead. The tree, with its bound spirits and bleeding sap, was a symbol of this connection, a physical manifestation of the veil he now guarded. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the yard, Alex felt a profound peace. He understood that his life would always be intertwined with the supernatural, that he had a role to play in the grand tapestry of existence. The fear and uncertainty that had once accompanied his encounters with the unknown were now replaced by a sense of duty and a desire to understand and protect the balance of the worlds. Leaving the old house for what he knew would be the last time, Alex looked back at the tree one final time. It stood there, majestic and enigmatic, a keeper of secrets and a beacon for those who sought to understand the mysteries of the beyond. As he drove away, the tree fading into the distance, Alex felt a sense of closure. He had come full circle, from a curious teenager fascinated by an ancient tree to a guardian of the veil, a bridge between light and shadow. His journey had taught him that the world was far more complex and wondrous than he had ever imagined. He had seen the beauty and the terror of the unseen, had spoken with spirits and faced his own fears. And through it all, he had found his purpose. The whispers of the tree, once a source of fear, were now a source of strength. They were a reminder that there was much to learn, many mysteries to unravel. And Alex, with his newfound knowledge and his unwavering courage, was ready to face whatever lay ahead. For in the heart of the unknown, in the space between the seen and the unseen, there lay endless possibilities, and Alex was ready to explore them all. He was the guardian of the veil, a wonder of worlds, and his journey was just beginning.